Hi, welcome to episode 2 of Young Africa Today. My name is Reinhild Niebuhr and I am the founder of the Young Africa Vision. Now, if you haven't seen episode 1, I would suggest that you stop this video right now and first go and have a look at episode 1, because that will give you the big picture of why I'm doing what I'm doing, where I'm starting, where it all came from, and just introducing myself. So, but for those of you who have already seen episode 1, you will remember that I stopped at a particular point where I couldn't remember something, and I asked you to think, if you know, what would be the sixth strategic focus area that is necessary or that would make sense to start building economies on a local level in Africa, in any village in Africa. Now, let me go back to the flip chart that I did yesterday so that you can see what I wrote on. And I'm very curious to know if any of you would have guessed it correctly. So, just to review quickly, I was talking about, let me just stand on this side. I was talking about the 3 anchor industries, because we need to have 3 anchor industries and we need to have 3 key economic driver industries in every single village in Africa. This is how we can create local jobs. Now, the good thing about all of these is that they serve as multiplicators, which means that if you have them, then you create jobs for one person in the family, but the other person in the family then has sufficient income from the family has sufficient income that other members of the family can start offering service-related jobs to the people living in that village, which is all the personal services, all the household and building and maintenance and those type of services, all the child care services, all the cleaning services, electrical services, and so on. So that is why these particular industries are so important, and also every human being needs them. And they are the first 3 anchor industries that you need in every single village is businesses around health, businesses around ecology, which is around nature, which is about producing foods, around energy, businesses around education. These are the 3 anchor industries that you need in every single village. Then, or in a, at least in a village of at least a village for me is a place where you have 10,000 people living. Now, just one point on that. When you have 10,000 people in Africa living in a place, half of them are children. You have always to remember that. So half of them are around 50. 50% of them are around 15, maybe up to 18. But generally, your adult population only starts from 35, and the youth are the in-between group from 15 to 35. And these are usually individuals that are not yet able, at this point in time, to contribute effectively to the economy, mainly because of a lack of skill. And this is one of the strategies that I designed to make sure that we can upskill every single young person between the age of 18 to 24 and then from 18 to 35, so that each one can be productive. Nobody must be sitting at home or walking slowly. You'll hear that in the first episode. So the first 3 anchor industries where we have to build businesses are health, ecology, and education. Then we look at the key economic drivers. Now these ones may vary from area to area, so you may not have the same one in each village. It may depend, well actually most of them you can have in each village. But the first one is around infrastructure, and I call this about community, because these are the things that we have to work together to build. We need to work together to build roads, for instance. We can't build our own road. We can, but it's ridiculously expensive and it makes absolutely no sense. So we have to think, how are we going to build a beautiful road for our community? How are we going to handle the waste? And I know there is no waste, there's only resources. How are we going to handle the used resources? How are we going to recycle them so that they can be of value to our community? And then we have things like water. How are we going to get water? Not everybody has a borehole on their piece of land, and it's not a very effective way of handling and managing water. So we have to work together on infrastructure, data infrastructure, communication infrastructure. All of these things work best if we work together on getting them to our community. Now, The next key economic driver is innovation. This is around technology. This is around inventing new ways of doing things. This is around methodologies of finding things, how to approach things in a new way. Because very often the old way is good, but very often there's room for improvement. And sometimes, and this is why I'm so excited about Africa, because there are so many millions of sharp young brains that can identify completely new ways of looking at things. And that can just say why, just ask the question why is this working like this? And start thinking why, and how can we make it work better? And that is really around innovation. We can have amazing innovations. I mean, one of the biggest things that really, no innovation so far has really been adopted on a mass scale is the water toilet, the toilet. I mean, it's crazy that we waste so much water by flushing a toilet. It's an absolutely crazy technology in a world where water is scarce, and I think there's enough water. The problem is we use it badly. So we need to think of ways, how are we going to get rid of our human waste and turn it into something that can be biologically useful again. Can we create our own gas for our stoves? What can we do? There's so many interesting things that we can do. But now we just flush it into a hole, and it sits there, and it's really a terrible waste. So we need some fresh young brains to look at the challenge of handling human waste. Then we have culture. This was the last one. This is actually cultural industries. And this is something that is unique to each, this is something that's unique to humans who have lived together for a while and have developed a certain way of interacting with one another, who have learned from one another, who have adopted a certain style of music, who have adopted a certain style of dancing, who have adopted certain beautiful art techniques, that have been passed on from generation to generation. And this is where the uniqueness comes out. This is where the original thinking comes from, is culture. And I absolutely believe that different cultures develop different skills. So my background is German, in a very strange way, because quite frankly, I'm very much a Germano-African. I'm very much an African. And so I have also adopted many of the cultural tenets that I have learned from my environment in Africa. And one of them is to value relationships above everything else. And so for me, relationships are really, really critical. And I believe that's something that I've learned from living in Africa and understanding that you can't just start talking to somebody about doing work together if that person doesn't know who you are. Who's your grandfather? Where did you come from? How did you end up here? What do you even want to do with me? I don't know if I can trust you. I first have to have a relationship. So these are things that are very important. But if you look at Chinese culture, we look at the output of China at this point in time, it is very clear that Chinese culture has lent itself perfectly for mass production. It has created a culture of mass ecology. It is a mass ecology because people work well together, achieving something incredible by having masses of people doing the same thing in the same way. And that type of culture is really helpful. It is something that is going to be affected quite radically by robotic technology, because anything that has to be repeated is something that a machine can do rather than a human being. And I'm looking forward to people in China that they don't have to stand in production lines anymore. I think life has so much more to offer than just doing work that a machine could do. But in Africa, really, one of the amazing things that I learned about African culture is that it is in fact considered an embarrassment to the ancestor if you repeat the same thing over and over again. It's as if they're saying, didn't we pass enough good genes to you that you can be original? Didn't we give you enough brain matter that you can think new? Why do you have to be so boring to make the same thing over and over again? Make something new, Life is boring enough. Make something exciting out of it. Don't make every sculpture the same. It's really boring. Make it a little different. Add a little thing here. Make a little, allow a little bit of a fault in the matter, because nobody is perfect. Each one of us has a little building fault, a factory fault. And that's what keeps us interesting. So in creation, there is nothing that's exactly the same. There's always a little bit of a difference. So let's follow God's way of creating. Let's create something unique. Every rose is unique. Every rock is unique. Every grain of sand even is unique. Every snowflake is unique. Every fingerprint is unique. God is a God of uniqueness, and in African culture, that uniqueness, that originality, is what makes what adds value to life. And so, when you buy an African craft, don't complain because it's not exactly like the other one. Be excited that you got a unique piece. It's really exciting. And so, in African culture, in Africa specifically, cultural industries can bring a lot of unique ways of looking at life to the rest of the world and can help people to appreciate uniqueness. So let us in Africa create the unique original item, and then, because that may be too expensive for people to own and buy a unique item, but they want something like that, let the Chinese copy it and let us take that as a compliment. That is great. Let them mass produce something great, a great idea that we have had here in Africa. So that one, cultural industries, the movies, the music, the art, the hairstyles, it's just amazing, the explosion of creativity that we find in Africa and the colorfulness of it all. So I really am excited about empowering young people across Africa to express their uniqueness and their originality through the cultural, through a cultural expression. So now today, I think, let me quickly take a break. I'll see you shortly.